The issue of climate change is a widespread and long-standing one, and has been nationally recognized in the United States as early as 1930. Today, we know that a combination of natural and human factors affect increased temperatures observed around the world. Volcanic eruptions, changes in the sun's intensity, and an increased amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are just a few causes of temperature fluctuation. Still, scientific research has proven that fossil fuel has a lightning effect on the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases found in the atmosphere. And consequently, the greenhouse effect has increased significantly in the last 30 years. One controversial and significant human cause of climate change in the United States is hydraulic fracturing. Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, is a system utilized in order to access natural gas that is trapped in rock beneath the Earth's surface. Sandstone, limestone, and shale are broken apart by pumping pressurized water into the rock to release the gas. Natural gas burns more clearly than other hydrocarbon fuels and produces less carbon dioxide per unit of energy released. In addition, it takes 2 years to build gas plants, which is relatively quick in contrast to other forms of fossil fuel extraction. So why is fracking so controversial? When fracking occurs, often the inadvertent release of greenhouse gases from the earth occurs as well. One of these gases is methane. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change estimates that a pound of methane gas traps 87 times more heat than a pound of CO2. Although some scientists argue that natural gas emits lower levels of carbon when used, the amount of methane introduced into the atmosphere as a result of fracking is certainly a contributor to the greenhouse effect that causes climate change. Factories and other big fuel-burning facilities also contribute to the amount of greenhouse gases, or GHGs, in the atmosphere. Coal, which is made of carbon, burns to produce carbon dioxide. Petrol, diesel, and fossil fuel are all hydrocarbons. When burned, they produce carbon dioxide and water vapor. Factories that burn these fuels produce massive amounts of GHGs and pollute the atmosphere. On an individual level, the burning of gasoline to generate electricity in cars is a major cause of pollution as well. The effects of climate change are felt in the United States and beyond. NASA reported that March 2017 was the second warmest March in 137 years of modern record keeping. Ice caps are melting at both ends of the globe, and as a result, the sea level has risen. It is anticipated that sea levels will rise between 7 to 23 inches by the end of the century, and if ice continues to melt at its current rate, polar bears will go extinct. There are several ways by which an individual or a group of people may go about reducing the amount of greenhouse gases emitted in the atmosphere. On an individual scale, taking public transportation to work or carpooling is one way to minimize both emissions and gasoline usage. The Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, recommends conserving electricity and setting air conditioners to no lower than 78 degrees Fahrenheit. In addition, spreading information in any form is the easiest way to help reduce the effects of climate change. Handing out pamphlets about climate change or holding meetings are both ways to discuss this problem. Protesting big businesses and the government is another way to help reduce the effects of climate change. Since President Trump was sworn into office in January of this year, the EPA has experienced a cut in their funding. Trump's plan of action would target regulations such as carbon emission rules, which constrain the amount of greenhouse gases that may be released by power plants. Signing a petition to bring back funding to the EPA is one small way that you can help the environment. On the other hand, protesting is a far more drastic, but still effective, way to influence businesses and government's policies and actions. Students and activists alone are not enough to make headway against the fossil fuel industry. New York Times writer Kate Arnoff recommends the assistance of universities, foundations, and public pension funds. According to Arnoff, students, alumni, and faculty have a unique access to their university's moral suasion and material wealth. The combination of universities' wealth and power and activists' passion will then make a statement that is impossible to ignore. Counterarguments for the issue of climate change are numerous, and although scientists recognize that climate change exists, many do not attribute human activity as its cause. For example, a Purdue University survey found that 47% of climatologists challenge that humans are responsible for the recent fluctuation in climate. 37% instead believe that climate change is caused by an equal combination of humans and the environment. 5% believe that climate change is mostly caused by the environment, and 5% find that there's not enough information to say. Although this argument certainly has validity, one may simply examine the shift in the seasonal cycle from 1880 to today. The modern global temperature record begins around the year 1880 because previous observations were not available around the globe. The seasonal cycle in 1880 was not statistically an anomaly. In fact, the mean temperatures for that year were 3 degrees Celsius below average. By contrast, since 1940, around the time that urbanization began to occur in the United States, temperatures have been increasing steadily. At the peak of summer in recent years, the temperature has been almost 2 degrees hotter than average around the world. Since 1751, approximately 337 billion metric tons of CO2 has been released into the atmosphere due to the burning of fossil fuels. During the 20th century, when concentrations of CO2, CH4, and NO2 increased in the atmosphere, the Earth warmed approximately 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Climate change is an issue that is vital to our world today. It impacts everyone on planet Earth to some degree. Although big businesses and the United States government can seem nearly impossible to go up against, it is possible through petitions, protests, and simply spreading information. Bill Nye once said, "Climate change is happening. Humans are causing it, and I think this is perhaps the most serious environmental issue facing us." In order to make our world better, we have to act. Take the first step today by signing the following petition to commit against Trump's new EPA plan to cut funding.